We were going to talk, there were projections, and there's 5 teams in Major League Baseball right now that are on the path to 100 losses. And it occurred to me, like, every time we try to talk baseball, we lead with something negative. Do we just, like, enjoy beating up on baseball so much that that's always the path?
Well, we've talked about it before, about how it's such an analytical game. It's a game that is, mired in failure, right? Some guys that are, 3 out of 10 are Hall of Famers. So typically, it's overcoming adversity. How do you overcome a slump? How do you deal with bases loaded, 2 outs? That is really the story a lot of times in baseball. So I don't think that it's a negativity as much as it's a lot of times just the story in baseball.
There's like Josh Wetzel. We had him on, does Red Wings play-by-play a number of times, and like one of the times he was hesitant to come on. He says, "Guys, you're just so negative about baseball, and we all like it." Well, but we're negative about it.
Yeah, but I think that's all in good fun. Pat likes to, joke with everybody about it. So, I don't think that it's, as I said, I don't really think that it's a negative take. I think that it's more analytical, right? When you look at things under a microscope, a lot of times you're going to have to see both sides of the story. Nobody has to say, if someone's on a home run streak, that is the story, but they still talk about the guy that got him out. Right? So which one is successful? Is it the pitcher or the batter? So on both sides of the story, typically somebody's successful and somebody's failing, and it just depends on which way you look at it.
The game could have a lot of changes. And even, like you said, even people who love the game get frustrated. It moves at a glacial pace, right? They just don't want to make changes that I think, I don't like when a sport tries to make changes because they think they're going to bring in all these other people. I think they need to make some changes that would make it better for the people who do like the game. How many times do you talk to somebody who is a huge fan of a team and tells you, I fell asleep in the 7th inning, or I didn't make it to the end of the game.
That's the beauty of the game.
Well, but you fell asleep not because, because the game was a regulation Yankees-Red Sox game that at 11 o'clock at night, we're at work. We sometimes show Yankees games as part of a package on 13, and the game will start at 7. And I still have to talk to the news producer and say, we may not be on live at 11 o'clock, and that's 4 hours. Yeah. So we know, and as people who know baseball know that some of that should be changing. It just doesn't move quickly
I keep waiting for it to turn retro. Like everybody else is doing it this way. Baseball keeps doing it this way, and at some point, maybe that'll pay off.
Loop back around, but I guess it comes down to, if you want to talk about modern fans' attention span, right? Like every other major sport, and this isn't a negative for baseball, because I think that you guys make a great point. The beauty of the sport is in the fact that you can fall asleep in the 7th inning watching a game, right? It's impossible to take those highlights and package them in a way, this, to give you 30 seconds of unbelievable action like you can in hockey, like you can in basketball, like you can in football. But going back to the original point, right? Like you're talking about a sport where the greatest hitter in the history of the game made contact 4 out of 10 times he was up at the plate, right? I think that it's less about being negative and more about highlighting how truly difficult it is to be not only a good baseball player, but a good baseball team. Because you have to find enough of those guys at the same time, have a manager, with the exception of Aaron Boone, that can outsmart everybody on the other side, right? Like, the beauty of baseball is in the fact that we're always talking negative about it.
Well, what are we going to do about all these rotten teams? We could have as many as 7 teams this year lose 100 games.
Unfortunately, that's part of baseball's process. And, we joke about it's the process. It's not a Joel Embiid, trust the process moment. But baseball goes through highs and lows. You have times where there's a lot of parity. And I don't know that parity is always a good thing, right? You've got teams where, everybody likes to see a team, bolt out of the gates. Now, obviously, it makes pennant races boring, but everybody else talks about beating that team, and the story becomes, is our team good enough to beat, a Dodgers, or is our team good enough to beat, the Red Sox of last year? So
last year.
Yeah, and I mentioned of last year. But again, and and even some of the story is that Boston's failing now, and they've got this, a lot of the same pieces. And what they did last year was they played with chemistry. They got small ball hits. They took extra bases. I guess that's the beauty of the game, is truly the strategy of the game. So nobody knows when the most important part of the game is going to happen. Could be first pitch, could be last pitch. It's the only game that still doesn't have a time limit.